Okay, so I do get to formally introduce Theresa. Theresa Haselmayer, she's the owner of Foundations Wellness Coaching. We're located right here at the living room. Theresa started her career working in various hospitals and medical centers and in-home healthcare. Her own struggle with mysterious and debilitating illness was over 15 years of illness, led her into her journey of holistic health. It's something that she never believed in prior to that, but to her amazement, holistic strategies really brought her out of that. She refers to it as a long nightmare into her current state of health and wellness. And so she's going to be sharing her story of hope and some of what she has learned over these past few years, helping all of us get out of our own nightmares. So from things like Lyme, autoimmunity, mystery chronic illness, and more. So thank you, Theresa, for sharing.
Jules. I will never forget the day that my doctor told me I had chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. I had been ill for a couple of years before that. No one could figure out what was wrong with me. We think you have too much stress, you have 3 kids, you're depressed. And I knew, I kept telling them, no, I have something that's really, really bad. I feel flu-like. More than just tired, I feel very sick. Headaches and stomach aches and pelvic floor dysfunction and interstitial cystitis. I mean, my list of symptoms kept growing and growing. And so to get a chronic fatigue syndrome diagnosis, at least it was something. But at the same time, I was truly devastated because I knew enough as an RN at that point that that's not something you want to have, because and that is something with no treatment to it. So, I mean, at that moment when he gave me that diagnosis, it really just felt like this cord wrapped around my body and started the hope and the joy and the life out of me, my soul. Everything was just really felt imprisoned at that point, because I thought, do I have to live this way for the rest of my life? And he said, well, maybe you do. I was 38 years old. I had 3 children. I thought, I cannot live this way. I can't live this way the rest of my life. I said, is there anything that you can give me? He said, well, you did test high for Epstein-Barr virus, but it's not mono, because you can only get mono once. And you can't get it over and over, but I've been getting this over and over and over. Well, I think it's just your genetics, Theresa. I think your genes like Epstein-Barr virus. And I thought, my genetics, I don't know really why else I would be so sick. And that really led me into a 15-year journey where I just felt very alone, very isolated, very hopeless. I looked normal on the outside, but on the inside, I was dead. I felt like I was dying. What he didn't know, he knew I had Epstein-Barr. What he didn't know was that I was loaded with mercury, radioactive uranium, mold, and that invited an old Lyme disease infection to come up out of hiding. So I told my story because I have a feeling that many of you in this room have similar stories. Maybe you or your child have been diagnosed with fill in the blank chronic illness, an autoimmune disease, or a syndrome illness like I was. You've been told it's incurable, or you've been told we can only treat your symptoms, we can't really do anything to help you. Or you've been told it's just stress, it's all in your head. And from my heart to yours, I want to say there is hope. You're not alone. And if you're willing to explore outside of just traditional testing and treatments, you very well have an excellent chance of gaining your health back. The happy ending to my story is that I did get well. I would say I'm 99% better, but in truth, I feel like I'm about 110% better because I feel better today than I did in my late 20s, and I'm 50 something. So, you know, it felt miraculous when I made the turnaround, and it was all holistic care. So something I never believed in before, like Julie mentioned. As a medical professional and as a now certified holistic practitioner, myself and Jen and Lisa, who stood up in the back, are continually educating ourselves to learn more about the root causes of autoimmunity and chronic complex illnesses in adults and children. So tonight I'm going to try to present it in a nutshell the best that I can. In functional and environmental medicine, I'm in training to be an environmental medicine practitioner. We often say that genetics load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger. So for many of us, we do have genetic weaknesses. Thyroid illness runs in my family, anxiety runs in my family, or gut problems, certain cancers run in my family. But some of us know also that we've had DNA damage playing into our illness. So when our DNA gets damaged, that loads the gun. But environmental toxins pull the trigger. So exposures to toxins will pull that trigger and set the illness in motion. Conversely, when we remove toxins from your body, the DNA will heal. And we have research and evidence around this. Mutated genetics can be turned off. Genetics can be healed. Not all, but many of them. And so I wanted to just quickly go over what genetic SNPs are, SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. These are mutations on genetic pathways. And the three most common that we tend to see in our office are MTHFR, which many of you are probably familiar with that. That is the genetic mutation that will make it much harder for you to detoxify heavy metals, lead, mercury, aluminum, arsenic. These things we do have in the body. CDC knows this. This is all in government databases that we have these heavy metals in our body. If you don't detoxify them well, you might be the person who reacts to their dental fillings where other people did not. HLA-DR. This is a genetic mutation that makes it more difficult to detoxify mycotoxins. Those are the waste product of mold. So if you've been mold exposed, like in my house, I was the only person who got sick. There was 5 of us there. My husband and 3 sons were fine. Why was I the only person who picked up mold? And so I did test for that genetic mutation. And then the PON1 is the genetic mutation that makes it more difficult to detoxify pesticides. I put that study up. I would love it if you guys would look that up and read it. What fascinated me about it was that organophosphate pesticides, which are very, very toxic and are sprayed on a great deal of food in the U.S., actually will cause the genetic mutation so that you can't then detoxify pesticides and herbicides well. And so you get into a vicious loop. The pesticides can damage your DNA, cause the mutation in the first place. And then if you keep taking in more of these pesticides in your food and water, you'll detoxify them less and less, end up in a state of toxicity, which can lead to autoimmunity. So in comes the field of epigenetics. So this is from the CDC's website. Epigenetic changes affect gene expression to turn genes on or off. Since your environment and behaviors such as diet and exercise can result in epigenetic changes, it's easy to see the connection between your genes and your behaviors and environment. So the example that they put up was smoking. So what they saw was that if someone was smoking, that those genetics for that person that affected their DNA methylation, their ability to spit toxins out of their body, was impaired by smoking. So when you think about that, it wasn't impaired by the act of just drawing in the smoke. What was it impaired by? It was impaired by the benzenes, the cadmium, and the lead, and the tar, the coal tar in the smoke. And so when the smoking was withdrawn, they could see that the genetics actually turned off, certain genes turned off. So this is the example that the CDC put up on their website. You can go read that more in detail for yourself. And so, guys, what we learn in environmental medicine is that airborne toxins of all type that are coming through the lungs are the most toxic, just like smoking. Taking toxins through your food, water, those are bad enough, but at least you have some filter on your gut and through your skin. When you inhale toxins, that will go straight into the alveoli, the little sacs in your lungs, right into your bloodstream. And so we've got to really understand our airborne toxins. I wanted to present a meta-analysis done by Professor Ami Zota. She looked at 26 peer-reviewed papers. I put the link up there that you can read for yourself. And what they looked at was dust samples from U.S. homes. And they found that in the dust samples, by far, the highest chemical that they found were phthalates. Those are plasticizers. The second was phenols, a basic building block of plastic. The third was flame retardants. The fourth was fragrance. And then the fifth were PFAs, perfluorinated alkaloids. Those are the forever chemicals, the ones that never break down. And all of these chemicals, phthalates, phenols, flame retardants, fragrances, and PFAs, absolutely in the research, this is not debated. This is accepted by our CDC that they play into developmental hazards, children who have delayed developmental milestones, reproductive hazards. We're seeing these things all playing, and especially the phthalates, to miscarriages, frequent miscarriages, and to infertility. They are known endocrine hazards, which means they are creating those xenoestrogens like Dr. Nelson talked about. They are messing with your thyroid. They're messing with your adrenal glands. They're messing with your pituitary, your hypothalamus. Any gland in your body that can produce hormone are known to be disrupted by these endocrine disrupting chemicals. Also carcinogenic and immunotoxic. So these dust samples were taken from the average United States home. And so what that's telling us is that the vast majority of plastics that we're getting into our body is coming from the air, even more than from plastic water bottles and tap water and using plastics. So Shelly's going to have a great testimony at the end, and she's going to share a little bit more about this. But what we're learning is that the autoimmunity, I wanted to just quickly, toxicant study, parabens and phthalates, find parabens in personal care products, lotions, hair care products, makeup, especially medications. Some of my functional medicine doctor friends were telling me that they discovered that their B12 shots they were giving had parabens in it. And so the parabens, when you inject those into the body, of course, it's going to be far more toxic than even when you take them orally. So parabens are linked to breast cancer in much of the research. Fragrances and perfumes, the phthalates are playing into the fragrances and the perfumes. Building materials, you'll get phthalates from building materials, from carpet, couches, and drapes. And the phthalates, because the plastics are not covalently bonded, which means they're not like a metal where just nothing flakes off that metal. The plastics flake. They're not covalently bonded, so little tiny bits, plastic never fully breaks down. It just slowly breaks into smaller and smaller and smaller particles. They're called microplastics and nanoplastics. And so the microplastics and the nanoplastics are what are being found in the dust, and they're being inhaled. They're not food. The body will never digest them. They're always going to interfere with normal metabolism, normal cellular function in the body, and they're always going to provoke an attack from the immune system. PFAS, the PFAs, those are found in nonstick skillets, all types of nonstick cookware. Even if it says PFOA free, it's probably got a different PFA in it. So if it's nonstick, it's really best not to use it. Grease-resistant pizza boxes and fast food containers, water-resistant clothing, firefighting foams are huge. There's been class action lawsuits all over the country over the firefighting foams. They were dumped in or they were sprayed along the Beaver Creek for years and created lots and lots and lots of illness in the people who were drinking the water in that community. DuPont dumped PFAs into the Ohio River for 40 years before any of us found out. And there is a whole movie on this. It's called Dark Waters. I encourage you to watch it. All of us who live here in Cincinnati were exposed to PFAS in our water. They don't break down. They don't go away. And they are potent endocrine disruptors. They mess with hormones. Cosmetics, the PFAs help the makeup to go on more smoothly, sink in better, and they help it to long lasting. So you've really got to use clean. You've got to look for non-toxic makeup. Microwave popcorn. My gosh, as a nurse working at the hospital, I ate so much of that. I burned it all the time too. But all the PFAS I got from microwave popcorn. The Environmental Working Group found one fillet of fish, farm-raised fish, United States, contained more PFAs than drinking contaminated water for a month, highly contaminated water. In Colorado, they recently found that all of their waterways were contaminated with PFAS. So, in fact, every waterway in the world has been tested and found to have PFA in it. So it's just gotten into everything. It's in city water, it's in wells, BPA free. Now, don't you just love that little deceptive tag? Because when BPA is taken out, usually BPS and BPF are put in, and they're just as toxic. So you really just need to avoid plastic. You get BPA from water bottles, tap water. Baby bottles are so high. In fact, the statistics, the recent research that I heard was that the average American is getting a credit card of plastic in their bodies every week. From all of the water that we're getting just from tap water, from water bottles, I tell people all the time, dude, just don't drink out of plastic. Get a stainless steel water bottle. Thermal receipts that you receive at the store, when you touch those, BPA gets from that receipt through your skin. So I've had people in my office tell me, yeah, after I worked at Meijer for a year and handed out all those receipts, that's when my health crashed. So fish, finding BPA in fish. And then, of course, the largest source of BPA in the human body is coming from nanoplastics. So it's just in our dust. It's flaking off of the synthetics in our carpet, our couches, our drapes, our all of the plastics embedded in all of everything. So indoor air quality is huge because, like I said, inhaled toxins are going to get into your body much quicker and with no filter than anything that comes through your mouth or skin. So asbestos, VOCs, volatile organic compounds from paints and gasoline. If you're parking your car in your attached garage, you're keeping gas cans there, you're keeping lawnmowers there, you're probably getting VOCs from the gas cans right up into your house. Formaldehyde from particle board. So most of us use formaldehyde or particle board furniture, and especially if someone has mold toxicity, they're going to always react to formaldehyde. They're going to not feel good in new construction because of all the formaldehyde. Mold is huge. I could talk about that for an hour, and I just don't have the time, unfortunately. That's something that if someone suspects it, we just really need to do some testing. Radon, Jen and Lisa and I have been learning more and more and more about how the people who are stuck, they come to us and they say, tried everything. Very often, they have mold and radon exposures that they just didn't know about. Some other toxins that can help turn on those genetics, load the gun, or pull the trigger, is mercury from dental amalgams is considered the highest exposure. Fish can also have methyl mercury, which is a little less toxic unless you have a lot of fish with mercury in it. Lead, we get lead from old lead paint in buildings, lead pipes, lipsticks, makeup. Imported wines and domestic wines are actually high in lead. That one shocked me. And, we're actually just getting lead. Indoor gun ranges, so they get a lot of lead in indoor gun ranges. Pesticides and herbicides. This one, when Jen and Lisa and I scan people in our office, we see these on everybody, don't we? Everybody. And we're running urine panels on people now. Every child that we have ever, Jen is our pediatric, but they all have Roundup in their body, every single one. Plastics, BPA, and Roundup. And so glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, atrazine, 2,4-D. 2,4-D was the major ingredient in Agent Orange, and it was rebranded into a weed killer. It kills weeds really well. It's also very, very toxic and is very often sprayed with glyphosate, Roundup, to make it work better. Organophosphate pesticides, extremely toxic to the liver. So when someone's got organophosphate pesticides on their labs, we know this person's going to have a very hard time detoxing. They're going to be called poor detoxers. I react to everything, Theresa. I'm a poor detoxer. Probably your liver is being affected by organophosphate pesticides, glyphosate too, and more than likely solvents too, benzene, styrene, toluene. Non-organic foods and water are the main source for glyphosate and organophosphate pesticides. People who live on golf courses tend to have more exposures to these things too. And so it is, the organic food thing is a difficult conversation because it's more expensive, and I get it. But at the same time, what is the price that you could place on your health if these things are damaging your genetics and are making it more difficult for you to heal your body? So in environmental medicine, what we say is that everybody has toxins in their body. It's not a matter of do you have any or not. The people who have a little bit there at the far left end of that little graph, maybe they have only a few symptoms. It's not too bad. And then the people like me who got so sick I could barely walk to my mailbox, or have a much higher load of toxins in their body. So when you've got these toxins coming in, and the research that we're seeing on toxins tells us what that one thing does. Well, this is what phthalates do. But what we don't have enough research on is what happens when you combine phthalates with mercury, with glyphosate, with BPA. And the tiniest amounts of these things can impact the immune system in someone's body just by combining it in one person's body. They will put people into these chronic inflammation loops that are really hard to break out of. Their cells, their organs, their tissues, and that internet, all the goo between all your cells in your body, where the messages are passed from one cell to another, they get really clogged up with these toxins. And what we're learning is that a great deal of the toxins are stored in between those cells in the extracellular matrix, it's called. We have to really just clean that up, and that's a very long process. But when we do, when you stay on track and you clean that up, that's when you can really turn off those genes that are expressing themselves. The other thing that many of these toxins, especially glyphosate and organophosphate pesticides, and the plastics, actually, the BPA, they are known to kill off good bacteria. So you get these microbiome imbalances. What's the microbiome? That is sort of like the rainforest. If you think about the rainforest in South America, you know, if you start going in there, chopping down the trees, killing off the predatory animals, then the rats and the snakes that are normal there, they're doing nobody any harm, they will start to overgrow. And the same thing happens in the human body, and there's tons of science around this. If you look at the Human Microbiome Project, you'll see many PhDs and doctors were a part of that project. What we've learned is that when we kill off especially lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, we end up with this overgrowth of Clostridia, yeast, aspergillus, very inflammatory and resistant fungi. Strep, staph, I think many of us know that strep and staph, we're seeing many resistant strep and staph bacteria. And then you've got the opportunists that come up out of the woodwork when there's so much inflammation, like Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr virus, herpes family viruses, mycoplasma, Bartonella, protozoans, little tiny parasites. And, you know, we should be able to live with these things, and we did for all of human history until our microbiome started getting thrown out of whack by the toxins. So now I want to just talk about the road to recovery. The road to recovery is not an easy, it takes a lot. That's why I brought up Ellen and Viviana, because, you know, it wasn't easy for them. They had to put in a lot of hard work. You know, their toxin bucket was really full. And sometimes you do enough work and you get that toxin bucket midway, but you still don't feel better. And well, that didn't work for me, Theresa. Well, the people who stick with it and empty that bucket more, that's when that immune system finally relents and turns off, and then the person starts to feel better. You have to really have a lot of perseverance. The two major keys to success that we see are dealing with those toxins and the infections, those overgrown fungi, bacteria. And typically when people come to us and they've seen 10 other people and they haven't gotten any better, it's because one of these things have not been addressed effectively. So I kind of liked this picture. If you imagine that these are your cells, the goo between your cells, your matrix. And I mean, there is a ton of trash in there. And look at all that plastic, I might add. The rats and the mice and the bugs, man, they're just going to run wild through there. They're just going to overgrow. They're going to overpopulate because, man, they're feasting on all that trash. And the same thing happens in the human body. It's really difficult to beat Lyme disease, to beat the co-infections of Lyme, to beat aspergillus or yeast or candida if you've got tons of plastics and phthalates and mercury and so forth in your body. So that's why we love doing testing around those things, because that can really explain why you haven't been able to get on top of your symptoms. I would love to tell you you could send a big dump truck in there and just pick all those up and dump them out. Wouldn't that be nice? But the way it really works, the way we see it working, is that we have to take it out little by little in the human body. It's a slow process. But for the person who isn't needing, or we all want a quick fix. I wanted a quick fix, but if you're willing to do the process, we can get those trash cans emptied, and we can start getting these bugs under control with some really effective herbal formulas that we use. Clostridia, Proteus, and Bacteroids have all been linked in research to autoimmunity. Yeast, Candida, Aspergillus, Cryptococcus have been linked. The World Health Organization recently put out a paper that are warning physicians that we're seeing more and more resistant fungi in the body because of pesticides, herbicides, and overuse of steroids and biologics. Epstein-Barr virus, herpes family viruses, they are just opportunists. They are just taking advantage of all that trash in the trash can. Lyme, Borrelia, co-infections, parasites, all of these things, we know many people can walk around with them and be perfectly fine, have good health. Why would they not have good health? And usually it's because of the toxins. So Jen and Lisa and I, some of our favorite tools when working with people, urine and blood panels, just to see what we need to focus on the most, so that we're not just talking about everything. We're saying, hey, what's in your body? What do you have? Let's figure out where that's coming from so we can make it stop. And then let's put a plan together to empty that trash out so that we can make the immune system calm down. Because the immune system sees all that trash and says, I'm going to fire all my bullets because I'm firing because I see that there and that doesn't belong there. And we can turn off that autoimmune attack when we empty those trash cans. We love saunas. We love Ion Cleanse by AMD Foot Bath. We've seen phenomenal results in people when they do these foot baths. Ozone sauna, far infrared sauna, any type of sweating, you can release toxin through your lymphatics that way. We love the cell core binders. We find that the high vibration humics and fulvics tend to work better than many other binders. Air and water filters. We love the zero water pitcher is a good place to start, but we always like the Pure Effects filters for just the best filtration for your home. And then the Austin Air. The Austin Air is the air filter most recommended by environmental medicine practitioners, and because it will get those microplastics and phthalates out of your air so that you're not just inhaling them. So, in my course, the teachers are always saying every home needs an Austin air filter. So I'm happy to say I am now selling those on my website, in my store, and if you put in the Pure or the first 10 code, you'll get 10% off that air filter. So organic food is really important, working with an experienced coach who has a proven track record of success. And then these are some of the formulas that we make here, that we spin organic essential oils into liposomes, and I don't have time to talk about it, but they work really, really well against these resistant fungi, Lyme disease, and there's just tons of research around oregano, garlic, clove, thyme, cinnamon, and they do a nice job. But again, you need both. You need to remove the toxicity, especially if there's an ongoing exposure, and then deal with the bugs. So to start working with us, we offer a 90-minute initial consultation. Tonight, if you sign up for one, you get $50 off if you sign up tonight. We offer a Zytoscan, which is where we ask your body just hundreds of questions about what you might be reacting to. And then we'll have recommendations for blood or urine testing. You receive one Ion Cleanse Detox foot bath with that, and individualized coaching and support. So sorry I raced. I'm very, very passionate about this subject because I like you. Who was it who you said, Dr. Nelson said, when I see somebody in the store, I know they have thyroid fibrosis. When I see someone who is very, very ill, I just know there's a load of toxins there. Thank you for listening to me.